Hi Apple lovers and welcome to the Tech Hub. This episode is an eBay and guide on how to buy iPads. Now in my last video I went through iPad selection and gave you a buying guide on my advice and my opinion on what iPads to buy, and today we're going to look at how to get the best price on eBay. So let's start the episode. Now, the first thing to talk about when buying on eBay is, do you buy it now or do you do an auction? Now, my next video is going to be on top tips on buying at eBay auctions. So today's episode is just going to look at buy it now. So with buy it now prices, you can still get fantastic deals on eBay. And this is what we're going to talk about with every iPad range that we went through on my top tips as a buying guide. Another question to ask when buying on eBay is, do you try and find a new product, a refurbished product, or a second-hand used product? So for every iPad we're going to talk about, we're going to compare the prices here. Now, obviously, you want to buy new, but refurbished has some fantastic deals. And also some of the refurbished sellers will offer some form of a warranty and guarantee as well. Now, remember, however you are buying anything on eBay, you are protected by eBay's protection. Okay, so buying new on eBay should be a new sealed product. If I've seen many listings where there's pictures of the device outside of the box, that is not new. However, there is also an option for opened, never used. Now, it's very easy to tell with Apple devices if they've ever been used. As soon as you activate it for the first time, the warranty starts. So if you get a device that claims to be new or unused, you can take the serial number from that device, go to Apple Coverage Check online, pop the serial number in, and it will tell you when the warranty is and when it kind of started. So if that is not by you, if you haven't activated that device for the first time, it is not new or never used. Now, with refurbished iPads, look for premium service. That means that they are certified with eBay as a refurbished place. Now, these refurbished shops do grade separately. There's grade A, grade B, grade C. Look at that shop to see, and they should describe, okay, grade A, we say there are no marks, or grade B, minor marks, grade C is fair condition, but have a look at those. Of course, with a used product, there are inherent risks, especially when it comes to wear and tear of the device, the condition of the device, particularly the battery. Batteries do degrade over time. However, these can lead to some fantastic deals. And as long as you ask the right questions when buying, you too yourself could find a good deal, even on a used product. Now, of course, with used models, like I said, you need to be asking the right questions. You need to be asking, what's the battery report? A good seller will put this in the ad already, and a lot of them have it in the title. You see 90% BH. Now, for me, anything for a 9th generation, considering it's not that old, I'd expect it to be within 90% of its battery capacity. But whichever device you go for, 80% and above, I would say is safe for at least a year of usage. When it comes to used products. Other things to look at when buying used is the condition of the screen. It's all in the detail of the ad. If it doesn't say it, ask the question. And chances are, if it doesn't mention screen condition, body condition, the sides, the corners, it's because they've got something to hide. In my descriptions, I'm very accurate. I take pictures of the entire device and I mention any minor flaws or any visible marks anywhere. For me, you can have used good condition, fair condition, excellent condition. Of course, with used products, you can also look at previous generations. So we will also talk about each iPad, the current generation, and actually how cheaper each generation goes back. But again, you do have those inherent risks of battery degrading, wear and tear. Now, as we're talking about iPads, of course, the operating system, iPad OS, you want to buy a device that is using the most up-to-date OS. Apple tend to go far back as 5 years. So within 5 years, you should get a device that is still supported and still receives the same iPad OS operating system, which of course gives you the exact same experience regardless of the age or which generation the iPad is. Okay, so let's start talking about each iPad. Now, for the sake of pricing today, all of the prices I'm going to talk about is the base model. So the lowest capacity, whether that be 32 or 64, or some cases 128 gigabytes and upwards. And each model I talk about will be Wi-Fi only. However, if you are buying a used product, buying cellular is not a huge difference. So usually there's a 200 price increase from Wi-Fi to cellular, brand new, but actually that gap gets smaller and smaller as you buy used. And actually in multiple occasions, I've managed to get an iPad that has cellular and Wi-Fi for the same price as a used one with Wi-Fi. And it's a good way of retaining that cost and that value of the device, that adds device. And also you'll see a minimal increase on storage capacity. Again, with Apple, the storage capacity tends to go up in 200s or around about that. But again, you'll see that gap close down as you do buy used as well, or refurbished. Now, when buying on eBay, I'm going to give you some very simple rules to follow for the searches. So on the search bar, you would search for Apple iPad. Okay, don't get too generic during that time because you can go in and you can use filters. So there's several filters that I suggest you use. If you are doing a buy it now, you don't want to do an auction, hit the buy it now. You can also choose which generation. And you can also choose the condition of the product as well. So that is the best way to really search and filter out eBay. Okay, so the first iPad to talk about is just your standard iPad, which is in its 9th generation. Now, actually, in my previous video, this was my recommendation. If you're going for your first iPad, this is the one to get. And it's available from Apple at $369 brand new. Now, looking at eBay prices, you can get a new model for somewhere in the region of 270 to 290 pounds, a refurbished model from 240 to 260 pounds, and a used model from about 200 to 230 pounds. Now, going back to talk about buying previous generations, you are going to get a similar experience, okay? The only tech difference tends to be the chip inside, but for most users, you're not going to see a huge difference. So if you are looking to buy a standard iPad cheaply, you have the 8th generation. Now with the 8th generation, you should be able to get this somewhere in the region of 180 to 220. The 7th generation, anywhere from 160 to 200. And the 6th generation, anywhere from 140 upwards. I'm not going to talk about the 5th generation because that is a slightly different model. And based on iPad OS, the oldest device that will work on is the iPad 6th generation. So you will get that same experience because that has the same OS. Now, I don't expect that the 6th generation will, after this year, so we're going into iPad OS 18, I do not expect that to work on the 6th generation. It will be 7th upwards there. So that's something to think about if you are going to buy a used previous generation iPad. Now let's talk about the iPad mini, the 6th generation. It's a stellar device, one of my favorite ones, and it really took everybody by storm and everybody loves this. Now from Apple, this is £569. On eBay, you're going to be looking to pay somewhere between £430 and £460 for that's new or open but never used. Refurbished, you're looking around £400 to £430. And with used, depending on the condition, I've seen it anywhere from £350 up to £400. Now, unlike the other iPad we just spoke about, this one does have previous generations. However, iPad 6th generation is the only one that will run iPad OS 17. The 5th generation is a decent iPad, but again, it's already out of date because it will only run iPad OS 16, and with the age of the device, those batteries will be degrading as well. The 5th generation you can get from around £200 and £250. However, I do really advise that you get the 6th generation iPad mini. There is a rumor that these are updating next month. I'm recording this in February, so March 2024. And again, with all of these iPads, with any new devices that are coming out, you'll start to see a decrease even on these prices that I'm talking about today, for probably 10 to 15% less eventually. Now remember, just because a new iPad is announced, it doesn't mean that prices are going to drop straight away until the device is out and is readily available to purchase. However, should see an influx of used devices coming on eBay to sell. I mean, when I started buying Apple products, there was around about 31,000 auction listings every day. However, that's gone up to about 35,000. So every time that Apple released new technology, I see this bump all the time. Now onto the iPad Air, which I believe is the most best looking machine. Yeah, it's good English. The most best looking iPad that there is. They're stunning. I love all the different colors and the form factor. Now this is available from Apple at $669, brand new. On eBay, you can expect somewhere in the region of 480 to 520, and then that's new or opened but not used. Now for me, this is one of the iPads that has retained its value on the reselling market, hence why these are pretty high. Now for a refurbished one, you're looking at from about £450, and used I've seen from 380 up to £450. Now, in terms of previous generations, all the way down to the 3rd generation will run the latest iPad OS. However, I don't expect that again to be compatible with the next iPad OS 18. So I wouldn't look beyond the 4th generation, which is still a really good device and really good value for money. Okay, so the iPad Air is currently in the 5th generation. For a 4th generation, you can pick this up anywhere between 280 to 320. Again, it does run the latest iPad OS, and I expect it to run the next one. However, it does not have the M1 chip in it, which does make a huge difference. I did already mention the 3rd generation. Now you can get this as low as £200, but I certainly wouldn't recommend it at this stage. And any used product, the battery, if it's not being replaced, will be pretty degraded already. Okay, so lastly onto the iPad Pro. Like I said in my buying guide, these are the best iPads there are. They're power horses. They have the M2 chip. I particularly love the 12.9 version. So the current generation, Apple sell them. So the current 11-inch model is $899, and the 12.9 model is £1,249. Now on eBay, you can expect this to be new or opened but not used. Now the 11-inch model, anywhere from 650, and the 12-inch model anywhere from 850. Now for refurbished models of these, the 11-inch anywhere from £550, but the 12.9-inch anywhere from about 800. Again, that's really retained its value. It's a beast of a machine, especially the 12.9 one. Now for used models, the 11-inch anywhere from 480 to 550. And the 12.9 I've seen as low as £750. But again, that device really does retain its value, and it will depend on the condition. But all these prices that I've talked about today are what I would say are good condition, usable, and a good purchase. Now again, previous generation of iPad Pros, the iPad OS will work all the way back to the 2nd generation of iPad Pros. However, I do not expect them to run this year's update, as in iPad OS 18. So for the 11-inch, working backwards, the previous generations you could get for about 400, generation both 300, and then 2nd generation around about £200. Now for previous generations of the 12.9 model, I would say the previous generation to this, around about 400, and then going back to 350 and then 250. But again, the 12.9 models do really hold their value. So that was my eBay buying guide on how to get the best price for whichever iPad you've chosen. Let me know in the comments what luck you've had. Tell me about your experiences. Tell me any bargains that you think you received and how you got on. And please let me know if you've got any tips for anybody, or if you disagree with anything I said today. So thank you for watching this episode and for your support of my channel. You can follow me on Instagram and Threads at TechWiltsUK. And I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Now, the next video will be finally my guide to eBay auctions. So take a look out for that one. See you next time.